I move that so much of the standing and sessional orders be suspended as would prevent the Manager of Opposition Business from moving the following motion forthwith. That the House 1 notes A. The Royal Commissioner, the Honourable Dyson Heydon, ACQC, agreed to speak at a Liberal Party fundraiser on Wednesday 26 August 2015 at the Castlereagh Boutique Hotel in Sydney. B. The invitation to the Liberal Party fundraiser states that, and I quote, cheques should be made payable to the Liberal Party of Australia New South Wales Division. C. The invitation also states, I quote, all proceeds from this event will be applied to state election campaigning. And D. That Mr Heydon has failed to rule out addressing Liberal Party fundraisers in the future. And 2. Censures the Prime Minister for failing to immediately sack his Royal Commissioner and establishing a Royal Commission that was biased from the start. We have no choice but to suspend standing orders, Mr Speaker, when we have a situation when we try to pursue it by questions and the Prime Minister can't even maintain the same answers for a space of 30 minutes. What's the point? What's the point trying to pursue this issue through question time when we have a Prime Minister? One thing he can't agree with his Attorney-General, he can't even agree with himself with his first answer and his most recent answer. We have somebody in front of us who is willing to mislead this parliament, who is willing to think that he will get away with saying one thing and then the exact opposite only 30 minutes later and think maybe no one will notice. Well, people will notice and people need to, because we have a situation today with what has emerged where we have a Royal Commission and what the events of today have exposed three things. In the first instance, the Royal Commissioner is conflicted. He is biased and he is conflicted. Secondly, if we are to take into account the argument that he's put in his own defence and that others have put in his defence, that maybe he was unaware it was a fundraiser, then he is incompetent. His job is meant to be that he's the person who knows what questions to ask. Checking who's organising the event is not a bad question to ask. So he's conflicted and biased, and at best, the best we can end up out of this is that the Royal Commissioner is incompetent. But the third thing that we've learnt today is what this says about the Liberal Party. What we've learnt today is what this says about the Liberal Party. We had the situation earlier, and it should have been a sign that we took notice of, when Ian Harper, at the same time we had the Harper Review, was wanting to attend fundraisers for the member for North Sydney. Maybe we should have realised that the Liberal Party will know absolutely no shame when it comes to misappropriating the requests and to, in the wrong way, have statutory officers engage in fundraising events for their party. Because the one group that definitely knew the whole way through about how inappropriate this was were the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party knew it was a fundraiser when they issued the invitation. The Liberal Party knew exactly what they were doing when they put this request out. And, when the front cover of the document has the Liberal Party logo, it's probably a hint that it's a Liberal Party function. It's probably a hint. But if the Prime Minister doesn't get the hint at the Liberal Party logo, which we're working on the basis he may have seen before, the reason that we have to suspend standing orders and can't pursue this simply through questions—
Member for Watson to resume his seat. The member for Corangamite.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. You've previously ruled on the use of props by members opposite. The member is utilising—
Members on my left will cease interjecting. The member for Corangamite will resume her seat. Member for Corangamite will resume her seat. I've got it. There is a difference in the practice between question time and speeches. I call the member for Watson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. But if that hint wasn't taken, maybe this would be a hint that the Prime Minister was willing to own up to at the beginning of question time, but scurried away from the moment the questions continued. Cheques should be made payable to Liberal Party of the Australia New South Wales Division. Probably a political function. But maybe if that didn't twig, how about this one, Prime Minister? A receipt will be issued. All proceeds from this event will be applied to state election campaigning. Maybe that's a hint. maybe that's a hint. But what we've ended up with is a situation where somebody who was employed and appointed on the basis that he should know what questions to ask and should know something about probity, instead has landed us in this situation. And make no mistake, the statement that went out today does not end the issue. Those opposite have wanted to say, oh, well, he's withdrawn, it's over. But read the words of that statement when he withdrew from the event. He couldn't attend any event that was described as a Liberal Party event. He will be unable to give this address, at least while he is in the... Those opposite have wanted to say, oh, well, he's withdrawn, it's over. But read the... Hey, guys, don't forget about me. The moment this one's over, I'll be back there for your fundraiser. Couldn't even hold back from making sure that he gets invited to the Liberal Party fundraisers again in the future. Now,
the member for Rankin.
You would have thought that the former Justice Hayden would have known, given that these are the words of a judgment he himself delivered in the British American Tobacco Australia Services Limited case v and Laurie in 2011, not that long ago. And I quote from paragraph 139. It is fundamental to the administration of justice that the judge be neutral. It is for this reason that the appearance of departure from neutrality is a ground of disqualification. It is the perception of the hypothetical observer that provides the yardstick. Be in no doubt, if a juror behaved this way, they'd be off the jury immediately. If a juror behaved this way, they'd be gone. But somehow this Prime Minister reckons that a Royal Commissioner can behave this way, and that's fine. And the reason goes to the very character of this Prime Minister and why he started this Royal Commission to begin with. Because he wanted someone who would be partisan. He wanted someone who would be biased.
The member for Watson will resume his seat. The member for Watson resume his seat. The member for Dawson on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member is debating the substance, not debating why that this motion is important and should be put forward. That's what he needs to be debating.
I call the member for Watson and ask him to bring himself back to the motion.
I've got to say, Mr. Speaker, if these aren't reasons why we should suspend standing orders, I don't know what are. Because these are the problem that we have in front of us is the only way to be able to pursue this debate is to suspend standing orders because the Prime Minister won't honestly answer a question. And we know he can't answer a question honestly because in the space of half an hour he gave the opposite answer for the same question. We know that he... And then when asked
the member for Rankin,
which one do you agree with, he says both. Both. Black, white, both. They're both true. That's where the Prime Minister got to in question time. But he also said, well, if you want to bring on a debate, then let's have it. So we said, OK, we'll have a debate. Do they give leave for it? No. And then when we start to refer to issues in the debate during the suspension, they say, oh, no, you can't do that. Oh, no, quick, jump up to the point of order. Those opposite, their embarrassment is for one reason only. They've been found out by the entire Australian people. There's nowhere to hide for them on this one. A Royal Commissioner cannot be a guest at a political party fundraiser. A Royal Commissioner cannot be a guest at a Liberal Party fundraiser. And those opposite know it. But disturbingly, their party back in April thought this was OK. They've known, the Australian people have found out in the last few hours. They've known since April and they never thought it was a problem. They've known since April and they thought it was fine to continue. Those opposite thought if this is what's going on,
Griffith.
That's further proof that this Commissioner is doing the exact sort of job that they had appointed him to. And that's what they're doing. We have the recommendations that we had from the Prime Minister, and he said, you appoint someone of this man's standing because you trust to his judgment. Well, I bet you do, but the Australian people have no reason to trust when what they're given is conflict and bias.
Is the motion seconded? I call the member for Isaacs.
So I second this motion. Standing orders should be suspended because I cannot imagine a more important matter for this parliament to be debating than a censure of the Prime Minister in relation to the Royal Commission that he has established. This Royal Commissioner, by his own conduct, has given the appearance of bias. And let no one be under any mistake about what the concern is. It is not being suggested that Dyson Heydon is actually biased. Of that we do not know, and of that we make no further comment. It is the appearance of bias that is the concern. It is the appearance given to every fair-minded Australian, every fair-minded observer.
The member for
looking at this conduct,
the member for Herbert
looking
is
at
warned.
this conduct, which is a Royal Commissioner appointed by this Prime Minister, agreeing to speak at a Liberal Party fundraiser. That's the problem. That's the problem which cannot now be cured, and no amount of obfuscation by this government, no amount of obfuscation by this Liberal Party can obscure what has occurred, and that's why standing orders should be suspended, so that we can debate properly an entirely called-for censure of this Prime Minister. This Royal Commissioner should resign. He should resign because by his own actions he has created the appearance of bias and discredited and compromised every single further action by this Royal Commission. And if he does not resign, he should be sacked by this government. The Prime Minister who appointed him with his captain's pick should dismiss this Royal Commissioner. And if he doesn't resign, and if he's not sacked by the Prime Minister and this Royal Commission proceeds, its findings will be of no value to the people of Australia because they are already discredited because of this extraordinary error of judgment made by this Royal Commissioner. This Liberal Party's Trade Union Commission Royal Commission into Trade Unions has spent over $80 million of taxpayers' money so far pursuing the political opponents of the Abbott government. And of course corruption is to be deplored. Of course allegations of serious misconduct are to be thoroughly investigated. And of course anyone involved in illegal behaviour in any workplace, whether unionist or employer, should feel the full weight of the law. And Labor has made clear again and again that we have no tolerance for corruption of any kind. But this Royal Commission, Mr Abbott's Royal Commission, should be seen for what it is. And I do not know why members opposite are laughing, but clearly they do not think this is a serious matter for which standing orders should be suspended. This Royal Commission is a tawdry political exercise by a government that is concerned only with its own ideological obsessions and not with the needs of the Australian people. The Prime Minister created this Royal Commission to smear the reputation of all unions in this country, and wherever possible the Prime Minister wanted this Royal Commission to smear the government's political opponents in the Labor Party if he could. This Royal Commission was set up by the Abbott government and has been conducted by a Royal Commissioner handpicked by the Prime Minister to achieve the political outcomes, not outcomes for the benefit of Australia, but the political outcomes which this Abbott government wants to pursue. The highly politicised nature of this Royal Commission has been plain for all to see from the first day of hearings, because those of you who were watching it all would recall that the first day of hearings were concerned with former Prime Minister Julia Gillard about events that were said to have occurred more than 20 years ago, and it turned up nothing. But that was the purpose of this Royal Commission. That was the first smear that this Royal Commission wanted to land, and that's why standing orders should be suspended. This Royal Commission has dragged also the Leader of the federal opposition before it to answer questions, and once again a Labor leader has answered hundreds and hundreds of questions about matters in the past, and it led nowhere. This misuse of executive power, which is represented by the Royal Commission, is unprecedented in this country. Australia is a country that has prided itself on respect for our democratic heritage, respect for our institutions, and it's been a respect that's been bipartisan. It's never been considered
the member's time has expired. The question is that the motion be agreed to. The member will resume his seat. I call the Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And Mr Speaker, on this, my 48th birthday, I was thinking I wasn't going to get a birthday present. But I was wrong, Mr Speaker, because the opposition has provided me with a lovely birthday present, which is the most spectacular own goal I've seen in this parliament, in this 44th parliament. What a spectacular own goal from the opposition. The very subject that they want hidden from the public view, namely their tawdry relationship with the Australian Union movement, they have decided to place front and centre of the Australian political debate here in question time and all day in Parliament. For months, the Labor Party has attempted to hide their relationship with the CFMEU, the MUA, the AWU, every other union in the Trade Union Royal Commission, even to the extent of pretending that they had no involvement with them. They never want to talk about the Trade Union Royal Commission ever, and one can understand why.
The member for Adelaide is warned.
I've helpfully brought the interim report of the Trade Union Royal Commission, which I'm happy to share and with the opposition.
The member for Chefley will leave under 94A.
It's much longer than my book, Mr Speaker, but it's actually extremely interesting reading. No wonder they wanted to hide their relationship with the union movement. They particularly wanted to hide the Leader of the Opposition's relationship with Clean Event Proprietary Limited, with Winslow Constructions Proprietary Limited. They particularly tried to hide the fact that the Leader of the Opposition was prepared to trade away penalty rates for the poorest workers in the cleaning industry in exchange for cash for his union when he was the Secretary of the Union.
The Leader of the House will resume his seat. The member of the House will resume his seat. The member for Perth on a point of order. The Leader of the House will... The member for Perth.
Mr Speaker, I wish to refer to the sub judice rule. Mr Speaker.
Yes, I'm listening.
The practice is quite clear as to whilst a member is entitled to refer to matters that have been raised in evidence in the Royal Commission, they are not entitled to draw conclusions.
The member for Perth, will resume her seat. The member for Perth will resume her seat. I've heard enough of the point of order. If you look at the practice on page 189, you'll see the history on points of order. There's been rulings on this in the past. Resume your seat. I'm calling the Leader of the House.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. And I'm not surprised that the Leader of the Opposition and the Labor Party have wanted over the course of the last few months to hide their relationship with the union movement and
the member for Adelaide is warned.
I remind her. The Trade Union Royal Commission in the public eye and the public thinking. I mean, for example, how do they explain why, if the payments from Winslow Constructions of $225,000 to the union movement were above board and legitimate, that they were being described as safety training?
The Leader of the House will resume his seat. The member for Isaacs on a point of order.
Speaker, the practice is very, very clear about this matter, and this is a motion to suspend standing orders. It is about the need for this House to consider the conduct of the Royal Commissioner.
Enough of the member for Isaacs. He can resume his seat. The member for Isaacs will resume his seat. He doesn't have the call. You don't have the call.
The point that I'm making...
No. Leader of the House can wait. The practice makes a number of points, and there's been various statements from speakers over the years on this subject. It makes 2 points, as you'd well be aware. There is a difference between sub judice with respect to court cases and royal commissions, and frankly, it would be a ridiculous restriction of debate if matters that have been raised in public and reported in the media could not be aired in the national parliament. And this has been raised, I think, on 3 occasions before by the member for Isaacs. I'm calling the Leader of the House.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And obviously the point that is being made is that the reason why the suspension of standing orders should not be agreed to is because it is simply a massive smokescreen from the Labor Party's embarrassment about their tawdry relationship with the union movement. And I'm giving examples from the Trade Union Royal Commission about why the Labor Party would be embarrassed. Why would they be embarrassed? And they're embarrassed because of revelations like that about Winslow Constructions and their $225,000 payment to the AWU for so-called safety training. Now, the second reason, Mr. Speaker, that the Labor Party has scored a massive own goal today is that they find themselves on the side of traducing one of the most eminent jurists in Australia today. Dyson Heydon, a long-standing member of the Australian High Court. I never heard the Labor Party criticising Dyson Heydon when he was a member of the High Court. One of the most eminent, one of the most serious jurists in Australia today was appointed to do a very serious and important job, which is get to the bottom of trade union corruption.
The member for Wakefield is warned.
And time again in this House, I have explained how the CFMEU is on the wrong side of the law, how this side of the House wants to bring the rule of law back to construction sites, and even the Leader of the Opposition and the Labor Party have admitted that there needs to be a change to the attitude of the CFMEU. In fact, the Opposition suggested they should be required not to wear their colours at the construction sites. We think they should be required to go further than that. So
the member for Kingsford-Smith
to bring the unions within the law
is warned.
And I would expect most people to support that in this House. And so the Trade Union Royal Commission is an important and serious part of government today. And therefore we appointed to that a very serious and eminent jurist, Dyson Heydon from the High Court. So Labor finds themselves on the side of bashing the umpire on this occasion, of taking out a political baseball bat and attacking the umpire, attacking the head of the Royal Commission, rather than recognising his reputation for seriousness, for fairness. They've decided, because they are so obsessed with the union movement,
the member for Griffith,
that they want to find themselves on the side of attacking the Royal Commissioner, attacking former Justice Dyson Heydon. He called him a bagman. He's called him a bagman. One of the members of the opposition front bench has just called Dyson Heydon a bagman. My eyesight not very good, but my hearing's very good. And he should withdraw that statement, He should be required to withdraw that statement.
I require the member to withdraw the statement.
I withdraw.
I call the Leader of the House.
Mr. Speaker, find themselves so out of touch with community expectations about the union movement and corruption and thuggery that they're now describing a former Justice of the High Court, a Royal Commissioner of the standing of Dyson Heydon, as a bagman, Mr. Speaker. That is how bad Labor has fallen because of their obsession, because of their symbiotic relationship with the trade union movement, and that is why they are unfit for public office in this country. And if the Labor Party was ever to be back on the government benches again, we would see what's happening in Victoria right now under Daniel Andrews, where the CFMEU is back at the cabinet table. That's what would happen in this country. Nationally, we would see the union movement back at the cabinet table. It's bad enough they won't support the Australian Building and Construction Commission. It's bad enough they won't support the Registered Organisations Commission. But they're now traducing the reputation of the Royal Commissioner, Dyson Heydon. Well, you won't get that on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker. We stand up for the worker on this side of the House. We're not trading away their penalty rates at Clean Event or Winslow Constructions or nameless other businesses that we don't know about yet, Mr. Speaker. And the other thing we're seeing today is the Labor Party borrowing from the Keating playbook. Because when this happened before, many years ago, I was in this Parliament.
The member for Griffith will remove herself under 94A. It's been warned twice.
Remember, Kenneth Marx was appointed as the Royal Commissioner, and Paul Keating's response was not to look at the merits of the case, but was to attack the Royal Commissioner, Kenneth Marx. That was the immediate, instinctive, knee-jerk reaction of the Labor Party then. Not to respect
Member
the courts,
for Ballarat will cease
not
interjecting.
to respect royal commissions, was to try and attack biliously the Royal Commissioner, Kenneth Marks QC, and they're doing it exactly the same method today. Labor doesn't change. They can't change their spots, and they need to be kept in opposition.
Members will cease interjecting. The member for Adelaide will cease interjecting. She's been warned. The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no.